To the Middleton City Hall. As you can see, it's a very special situation here because of the coronavirus, and I'm going to open the meeting of Middleton Common Council for March 17, 2020 to order. And the first item is the roll call.
Sullivan,
Here.
West,
Present.
Ramsey,
Here.
Olson,
Present.
Burke,
Present.
Nelson,
Here.
Kuhn,
Here.
Bizarre,
Here. I'd like to change my response to present.
Thank you.
Okay,
Since it is St. Patrick's Day.
yeah, I'm sure that Bill might accommodate that, so. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the comments from the citizens present, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Anybody wants to speak? Mike?
Today I received a phone call from a resident who is opposed to the liquor license for Dollar General that's on the council agenda tonight. I could make this comment.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, it died. Check, 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 check.
Is this working?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go with this one then. So a resident from Jonquil Court, which I believe is near the Dollar General, called. She didn't want her name used, but she asked that I pass along, and I want to make a recommendation to you. She could not be here tonight out of concern about the coronavirus for her own particular health situation. But she's concerned because of the location of Dollar General, which I believe is the former Family Video location,
Correct.
being a block away from the Quick Trip, and the number of liquor licenses in that area. Lori Burns confirmed for me that this is a proposal for wine and beer, but that because this resident could not be here for the public hearing tonight, I told her I would pass along my recommendation to you to defer until we're able to have more public comment tonight. And you may have others here to comment on that license already.
Okay, Susan?
Got a concern that we're hearing a comment from someone who's unwilling to give their name, address. I find that disturbing. I don't have a problem with the comment. It's a very valid comment, but I do think if someone's going to be making a statement, they should provide their name and address.
I did tell her that it would be easier for the council if we had a name and address, and she was not willing to provide that, other than to say she lives on Jonquil Court.
But when we have other citizens that come, they do.
Correct.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mike. Okay, I'm going to close that part of the meeting. It is beyond 7:32, and I'm going to open the public hearing for Dolgen Corp. LLC, doing business as Dollar General, is requesting a Class A fermented malt beverage and Class A intoxicating liquor license located at 5430 Century Avenue, Middleton, Wisconsin, with Khan Imran 609 Grandview Drive, Sun Prairie as an agent. Anybody who wants to speak? Please come to the mic, identify yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, hello. Can you guys hear me? Hi, my name is Imran. I'm the district manager for Dollar General. I was told that you guys might have some questions for me. So if you guys have anything, I could answer.
Are there any questions for Imran? Yes, Robert.
So I take it that currently, Dollar General is new there, right? So
Yes.
this is an addition of a liquor license. There was no prior business right in that area that had a liquor license, I presume. It was Family Video before that. Is that
Correct, yes.
okay? That's all I need, thanks.
Yes, Emily, and then Kathy. Yes, Emily.
Do most Dollar Generals carry liquor?
Yes, they do. Majority of them do.
And is it usually like beer and wine?
This is beer and wine, that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As just a note of reference, when it went to L&O, we gave them the license strictly for beer and wine.
Kathy?
The difference between Dollar General and Quick Trip, how would you summarize that? Is the Dollar General more groceries and that kind of thing versus Quick Trip, or?
Yeah, Dollar General mostly in grocery. 99%, 60% is grocery. Then we have a little bit household items we sell for daily use, and then grocery and then beer and wine as well.
Anyone else? Yes, Susan.
I have a question, I think more for the members of L&O. Does the Quick Trip have a liquor license?
They have
Oh, yeah.
beer and wine.
So this would be two licenses fairly close together.
Fairly close.
So Dan, do you know that if this establishment, the Family Video did not have the liquor license, right? Or they did?
No, Family Video did not.
So where is this license coming from? We had some available for them?
This is
a non-quota license. The only quota is applied to places that sell intoxicating liquor by the glass. So there's no restriction on numbers by There's no restriction by statute on the number of Class A licenses that can be issued.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Any other questions for Mark? You have something? Okay. Anyone else? Emily?
Just for reference, I think my district has some like situations near each other. So there's a couple stores that have things that they sell. So that distance doesn't bother me, but it's good to know that you're looking at it or thinking about it.
Yeah, just within a block of each other, right?
Yeah, because I think CVS and
CVS does.
Oh,
and then the grocery store, behind the Starbucks. So like that, they're literally like a
Yes.
stone's throw.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Imran.
Thank you, guys.
Anyone else who wants to speak? Okay, I'm going to close that part of the meeting and we move to the approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to update and actions, and the first one is the declaration of emergency recommendation by Dane County Emergency Management. So this will, go ahead, Mike. So this will enable us to get money if the federal money or the state money, any money is coming, so. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Did you want to go ahead and move in second?
Oh, okay. Need a motion to
Move
approve?
approval.
Need a second? Second. Okay, so let's have discussion, so.
As the mayor said, this would be necessary for us to potentially get federal and state funds on behalf of Middleton and possibly for our businesses as well. But also it shows the will of the council in declaring an emergency. And also in that last be it further proclaimed clause, additional language that Matt Fleming added today in this draft is that during the state of emergency, the Common Council and any necessary meetings of other city governmental bodies may conduct meetings whereby attendance of members is achieved by telephonic or video conference means, and public access may be provided by video by way of cable television or online streaming of meetings. So the importance of this is that we have, and I've gotten this from Larry the Apostle, and that is over many years, it has been our position with Larry's guidance that you need a physical presence of a governing body to have a legal meeting. There is a lot of discussion. Nothing has really changed by law, as far as I know, but there's a lot of discussion with the League of Municipalities and the governor's office to allow during this emergency so that the wheels of government don't stop spinning, so that we are able to continue with public meetings and allowing, at least during the emergency, for the kind of meeting where you would not necessarily be present or have a quorum of the council or other committee meetings present. However, what that would mean, as I understand it, and Larry can correct me if I'm wrong, he's been involved in the discussions among municipal attorneys, is that we would still need to have the ability, and Jeremy has said that they could live stream our meetings, and this one is actually being live streamed moving forward. So any meetings in this chamber, and that we can get their time to tape those meetings, could be live streamed. We could keep the door open for public that does not have access to a television or computer, as the case may be. We could also potentially have a telephone call-in. Would mean a staff member would need to be here at least, and we could project the council or any agenda onto that live streaming. So people could participate either watching on a computer or television and possibly calling in or just watching, and also have the option to come into the room for those who don't have those other options.
Could we hold the meeting by Skype?
Or Zoom?
Yeah, all of those are options.
Technology that can be used.
Right. So we actually experimented with Zoom technology here for an internal staff meeting today, and it worked really well. And so we feel that we could do that. I don't know how we would necessarily integrate that with the video, but we can explore that with Jeremy and Christy as well.
Any questions? This is a pretty big change here, and the Dane County and the Madison is doing it as well, from what I understand.
The circumstances of this are obviously unprecedented. There are, and I just want to give you an idea of the breadth of the concerns that not only I feel, but all over the state. I was on a conference call with 300 other attorneys and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities staff this morning for an hour and a half, and we could have gone longer. There's a divergence of opinion among people on having online meetings. And I want to tell you these options just so you know they're out there. Some would say that any municipal meeting can be done online, and that the presence that's required for purposes of counting a quorum could be a presence online rather than a physical presence. I was very opposed to that because basically that would mean that every governing body of a municipality in the state could disappear from being live, and clearly that's against public policy. We also talked about the idea of adopting a charter ordinance. The purpose of the charter ordinance would be because the statute that talks about quorum is not stated to be a statute of statewide uniformity, that we could adopt a local ordinance that says quorum could be counted by people who were present online. The problem with the charter ordinance is they don't take effect for 60 days after they're adopted by the council, so that doesn't do us any good either. The emergency declaration is clearly the best way to go. First and foremost, no one can say that the city of Middleton is doing anything to go underground. We're as above ground as we can be, but at the same time, we don't want to endanger the health of the alders, the mayor, city staff, and those who attend our meetings by being in a situation where they could be going into a potentially serious situation. As Mike has said, we had a citizen who, whether with justification or not, was afraid to come to the meeting tonight because of concerns about COVID-19. So this is a means which, in our view, would apply to any meeting that the city would choose to have. Every meeting will still have a quorum requirement. For the council, that means 6 people. For other committees, that means a majority. If we don't have the necessary quorum, whether electronically or in person, the meeting can't happen. The other thing that we discussed and we're having a lot of difficulty is, what about public participation? We have an ordinance that requires us to have, as we have on tonight's agenda, comments from citizens present. If you don't have the meeting live, how do people participate? And I don't have an answer for that yet. One possibility could be that if let's say the mayor, I'm picking on you because you're the chief executive officer of the city, if the mayor is convening these electronic meetings from the common council chambers, in theory, people could come and still speak and other members of the council could hear it. Another option, and I think equally valid, would be that people could submit written information to, I would suggest this should be part of our policy and disseminated widely to the mayor, and only the mayor, who would then read or delegate to someone else to read or distribute the electronic form of these communications to the alders so that everybody has the benefit of the public comment. We can't exclude the public, and the idea of having a public meeting that's not public is anathema. We can't let that happen. So, I think it's going to require a lot of cooperation from people. People who have looked at this, I'll give you one more example. 20 years ago, a League Wisconsin Municipalities attorney said any meeting could be electronic. He got a response from the Justice Department saying, no, it can't. And then the League attorney said, well, I disagree with you. That's why we're not just doing this except based on the existence of the emergency. But I think it's going to take everybody being very cooperative with each other. If I would suggest that, to the extent that there are things on our agendas that don't need to be acted upon immediately, they ought to be deferred. But when we have public hearings, we will have to hold those public hearings. They're not going to look like the public hearings we have now, but we're going to have to continue to hold them. And so I think with the cooperation of our video provider, who I would think in theory we could hold any committee meeting in this room since it's equipped, assuming we don't have conflicting meetings, I think this is a solution that will work. Do I have any ability to tell you 100% this is guaranteed lead pipe cinch, that someone isn't going to sue us over it? Of course not. This is unprecedented. But I think this is the best we can do under the circumstances.
Yes, Susan.
Yeah, I have a question with the governor's decree, declaration, whatever today, of we can't have more than 10 people at a meeting. How do we deal with that?
There's an exception for local government.
Okay.
Any other questions, either for Larry or Mike? Yes, Robert?
There's a lot of committees out there, and I know that we're trying to prioritize the ones that have maybe the most interest from the public, or something has to happen, or other things fall through the cracks. The example I have, next Monday, we're supposed to have Public Works. And yes, we could do it in here, except usually other times there's other people in this room, and so Public Works is in conference room B. So maybe the conflict's not there now because there's fewer committee meetings happening. But is the plan that we always have to have them televised? Are there other options? I know I heard Zoom mentioned. I don't know if some of these things where everything's happening on the computer and both the participants from the audience can be online and the committee members can be online, and maybe nobody needs to be in a room.
Robert, we experimented with Zoom here at a staff meeting today, all of us in our separate offices. So for those who have cameras on their computers, their face shows up. You can hear others who don't, like me. You could hear me talking, and we could talk amongst each other. So Zoom could work in that purposes and be done in conjunction with live streaming of the meeting. So you've got live streaming on the one hand, you've got Zoom, so you can see the participants or hear them from the screen, and that can be then shown on the camera. Zoom also allows for you to call in from outside. So you have to publish a phone number to call in to make that happen. So I can't say that I know all the mechanics of this, but I think that we can get that worked out. Perhaps experiment with Public Works Committee next Monday in this room, or in this room for the staging of the meeting, and maybe you're all in separate locations.
Susan?
Yeah, I think one thing is we only televise council meetings and plan commission. So unless we have a huge number of people coming for a Public Works meeting, I don't think it's as complicated as you might be thinking. We could easily spread the 7 Public Works members out and have 2 staff members and still get quite a few citizens here. And keep us socially distanced appropriately.
Yes,
I'm
Bill?
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think we need to not just think of the current situation today. This is an unprecedented public health emergency. This is going to get much worse before it gets better. Speaking as myself as a staff person, I came tonight. I don't know if I would be comfortable coming to a meeting 2 weeks from now. We need to think about this.
Exactly.
Emily?
Can I beg you to wipe that microphone off?
Yeah.
You guys are being passed around, and sorry, I just care about you guys all too much.
Thank you, Katie.
Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, just to echo what Bill was saying, I was informed today that San Francisco is in shelter in place. It has one of our regional offices, so they're not allowed to leave their house. I'm not saying that's where we're going, but I think what you're saying with the technology makes sense. I think practicing before we, yes, would be wonderful, and doing it from home for your Public Works or whatever would be great. I support technology. I support paperless in the environment. Really sorry we're in this situation, but I'm glad that you guys are being flexible and supportive of the tech. So whatever you need.
Well, responding to Susan,
Yes,
I think
Larry.
we should try very, very hard to provide an opportunity for the public to participate in any committee meeting that happens. And I don't care what committee it is. Because the same arguments for keeping public access to the council apply to any other governmental body of the city. And it's going to be different. But I still think it would be very wise to provide the maximum opportunity for the public to participate or at least watch.
So that
Yes.
argues for live streaming all committee meetings.
Yes.
Well, so,
And that would beg the question to keep the meeting agendas as short as possible, as few meetings as possible, so we could have this room to live stream them in. And then the other thing that we have to look at is
The
these folks
cost.
and how long they're comfortable
Mhm.
doing it.
You want to offer some comments there, Jeremy?
I better.
Yes, Jeremy. After that, Susan.
Hi. Jeremy Crosby, 7801 Clinton Road, DeForest. So our company is Moonstruck Media. I also serve as a full-time community media, whatever we're called at the city of Fitchburg, so director of that television station. And we're down to tape doing 4 meetings. We're doing all our meetings live. We've been doing that for a long time. What you guys are talking about and what Mike is offering, I think we can offer up. I don't think you just have to be in this space to do the meetings. Yes, we're set up with cameras here, but our company can be wherever. So we were down in Milwaukee today streaming a conference. We can go wherever. I think we would want to test the Zoom theory, but in theory, if we can capture a screen image of whatever the Zoom is and still see everybody and hear everybody, we could ultimately stream that. I would encourage you now, if you could take a look at YouTube and search City of Middleton. We're doing that test right now tonight. That streaming looks pretty good. You guys could determine with Larry, on the, maybe you do comments on YouTube. You should probably consider that as an option because that's available to turn on and off. But yeah, I think the sky's the limit on how much you want to stream. The Skype thing gets a little bit more difficult, but could be done. I just don't know. You're probably looking at paying for an account because you don't know how many people would actually be tuning in. And really, if you're just talking about short amounts of time where the public actually comment, I don't know that Skype's the answer for that. But I think there's lots of options out there to do this. So we can handle a capacity, certainly we're really busy right now because everybody wants to stream. So we're trying to give priority to the people or the places we've been working with. So, but maybe you just limit down to 4, pick your top 4 meetings and go with that, or we tape them and put them up, whatever would work. But as long as we have an internet connection and because we're using YouTube, we can pretty much be anywhere be available.
Mark, and then Emily, and then Susan.
So Larry, I understand the
Yeah,
desire to stream everything.
Because you had the opportunity.
But I'm wondering if for some of these smaller committees, I mean, if you decided that Public Works, Planning, and Finance and Council were the 4 that you wanted to video, Mike, I think Zoom has a record feature that you could essentially post that stream with the minutes. And I'm wondering if as part of the agenda email push out, that you could just load the URL and phone numbers to that, whether that would suffice. Right, I'm not sure whether there's cost to Zoom for anybody to dial in, but it seems to me that that would probably work for most of the committees that really had to get something done.
I know Abby purchased the Zoom just last week for $30 a month, and it allows for up to 100 people calling in on one meeting. And I think
Calling in or on video?
Participating on video.
Through the internet?
Well, participating video-wise for all of you,
Okay.
and then calling in up to 100 people. So for all but our airport commission meetings, that probably would work. Thanks for laughing.
Okay. Emily, you had something to?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've had 2 random constituents ask me about potholes this week, so your committee probably would be of interest, but none of my committees have been asked about, and there's been no comments about the other committees I serve on. So potholes are popping, so if you could have those on, I'd be happy.
Susan?
Okay, finally. One of the things I would like to say that slightly off topic, but incredibly relevant for this, social distancing, staying at home, hand washing, and being really stringent about it is the way we will get through this. And the quicker we all adopt those measures, the faster it will happen. It's been proven scientifically this works. The animal industry uses it, and I actually used to work on a pathogen that infected pigs, and it literally would wipe out whole herds. They simply insisted on the pigs were born by cesarean section in the place. If you went in there, you had to take all your clothes off, take a shower, put on new clothing, including underwear. That stopped it. There went my research. It was an easy thing to do. We need to be careful. Wash your hands, stay away from everybody, stay at home if you can, and this will get better. And soap and water works beautifully.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Susan. Anyone else? Robert?
No, I just,
Okay.
I love the idea, yeah, I guess I will talk. I love the idea of having it, a video of it for a common council meeting. I'll just kind of reiterate what other people have said, that for other committees, usually you have 5-10 minutes, maybe at the beginning of a committee meeting, where you have your public comments. There's a little bit of back and forth, and then after that, you're done, and it's just the people at the podiums. So at that point, you really don't need as much interactivity. You just need them to be able to watch the rest of the conversation. And I think, again, it may be overkill to have a full videotape of an entire committee meeting sometimes.
Katie?
I just want to take Larry's point that it's in everyone's best interest that we stay above board and as public as we can, and be really serious about keeping it very public. It's super easy to say this is an emergency and go underground, and that's when our democracy will fall apart. So I think it's really important, and I take your point about what we can do to keep it public is very important.
Well said.
So, Mike and Larry, this is only for this emergency part to begin
This
with.
is what this declaration
Yes.
of is, as long as it lasts.
Yes.
I don't believe we put a, oh, no. Well, we do have declaration of local state of emergency is imposed for 60 days, subject to an extension authorized by the Common Council. So we did include 60 days in here. So just to get back to the mechanics of this a little bit, yes for the council, yes for the Plan Commission, maybe for the Public Works Committee. I think it depends upon what the agenda items really are. If it's pretty mundane, perhaps not. Maybe we just cancel the meeting. Might be the same thing for Parks, Recreation, Forestry. Again, depending upon the issues.
Mike,
License and
with-
ordinance could be.
With respect, I think it would not be wise to draw a line and say these committees are, air quotes, important enough to video, and these committees are not. All we need is one unhappy citizen who really, really wanted to see a meeting, even though they didn't intend to speak at it, to have a problem. And I just think that it's just a lot easier not to draw any lines and just say, we will videotape or provide the equivalent at all meetings.
Well, just to clarify, Larry, I wasn't trying to draw that line. I may have been inarticulate in expressing it, but the idea would be perhaps Public Works just not meet. Right now, all meetings
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
now and April 5th are canceled.
That's fine.
We could still have a Plan Commission meeting, but the idea would be select meetings would be done electronically. The others would be canceled.
Okay.
Susan?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking this might be a policy going forward we want to have, because I agree very much with what Katie said. And we could have various reasons why citizens couldn't get to a meeting or would want to watch them. And it's an easy technology that's around.
But that's an ADA question. And the law already provides that if we are notified by a citizen that they want to attend a meeting in person, it's our job to accommodate those requests. So if it's a homebound person, we go out with a wheelchair van and we pick them up and we bring them to the meeting. Now, we may not be doing that very often, but that's the reason we have that little note on the bottom of our every agenda, so that, as long as they tell us, we will help them. And if it means taking them to some place where they can see the video that's not in their home, I would assume we would try to do that too. So just understand, that's already
That's for ADA.
policy.
I'm thinking about other reasons why citizens couldn't particularly make
Well,
it.
we're not going to just ask people to provide doctor's excuses
No,
as
but
to
I'm-
whether they
but I'm
need help
talking
getting to a
about
meeting.
Making it easily available for a citizen to see a public works meeting. or to
Okay,
see
next
a
one is
parks
Dan.
meeting.
Susan,
Dan Dempsey.
I think maybe if I can help you for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
is what you're saying is, this is not a bad policy going forward, that
Right.
we just
That's what
stream
I'm
all of
trying
our
to say.
meetings. Is
Bring all
what
our
you're trying to
meetings
say.
so all our citizens can
Not
see.
based on a hardship or based on an
Right.
emergency or whatever, but as a matter of course,
Yes,
matter of city public policy, that we would stream our meetings.
so that we can make it available to all citizens. Yes.
Good idea. Okay, any further discussion? Thank you, Dan. Okay, so the motion is to approve the declaration of emergency in the city of Milton, including what we were talking about here. So all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. All right, we are on to item number 2. This is the amendment to pandemic flu response, and the Susan West updated this one. We need a motion to approve.
I will move approval, except it should say amendment to pandemic viral response. Or it's amendment to the flu response, viral response.
Okay, need a second.
Do we have it? I haven't seen it.
Oh,
That was the agenda item.
yeah, I haven't
It's-
seen the copy of
In the
that.
regular document, yeah. The actual document is not there. It's just the summary sheet. I can tell you what I changed.
I don't even
Wherever
know
it
why
said
I can't see it.
influenza, I put viral and tried to make it more generic.
There weren't very major policy changes.
No,
It
there
was
were
to
no
make it
chali-
a more generic plan, because when we originally put the plan together 11 years ago, it was for pandemic flu. That was H1N1 or the swine flu at the time. So you are actually amending that.
Yeah.
You're suggesting, Susan, that it should say amendment for viral flu response.
Yeah.
So just add viral there.
Yeah, delete influenza and put in viral. But what we haven't seen is the response plan. I've seen it, but the rest of council
Okay, so then
hasn't.
we can't really, so what do you want to do, Mike? So can't really approve it, Larry?
Well,
If the council hasn't seen it, I would recommend deferral.
Okay, so need a motion to, that wasn't seconded, so need, okay, Robert, and, okay.
just to state, it's not critical that it be passed, and I think you all know that too. We already have a plan in place.
Okay. Okay, any discussion?
I actually do want to thank Susan very much for taking the lead on this, even though we're deferring tonight because we haven't had a chance to really understand it ourselves. It doesn't take away from the fact that you put in work to improve a document that is going to be really very important
Yeah.
right now.
No, it is. It goes over a lot of procedures in terms of some of the things like this declaration concepts. So we do need to get it approved. I don't know why it wasn't included in the packet.
Any other questions or comments? Any more, Susan? Thank you again. So, all those in favor of this motion to defer, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? So the motion is passed. Item number 3, update on city actions and preparation of COVID-19 pandemic. Mike?
All right, I've tried to keep you all pretty well informed, but for the purpose of our audience, those who will watch this or are watching it, we have, as you know, closed the library, the building. Library programs still are proceeding. In fact, there's a Facebook Live tomorrow for children's story time.
Oh,
So at 9:30 a.m. So the library is still offering programs and trying to do their creative best to make sure that they have a presence throughout this pandemic. The senior center has essentially closed. All programs are closed. The dining site has been closed. They still will be delivering, as long as we have volunteers, through Meals on Wheels for people who are shut in. They're also calling actively their list of folks who are shut in to check in on them so that you're aware that that's happening. That's part of their program planning. Madison Metro I passed this out. You have it each at your desk. Mark Opitz put this together this afternoon. Essentially, they're going to be cutting back on service. The focal point for the service would be Route 72, which serves the north side and the west side and the commuter traffic down University Avenue primarily. So Madison Metro will cut back that service. The costs will also be cut back. We don't know exactly by how much. But the concern, of course, is that there aren't quite as many people using the bus right now, but they want to maintain service throughout the day. In between the commuter hours, there would be a more scaled back service, which is akin to what we currently have on Saturdays for bus service. Our buildings are essentially closed at this point, except for this meeting. We have maintained some openness. Public Works office has been open up through today. We've taken precautions. We've put signs up advising people not to enter the building if they're sick and to call us or email us for service. However, what I would like to do is to officially close our buildings at this point. This does not mean that we would not have staff continuing to work within the buildings. There are some staff that can answer the phones and will continue to do so while we're doing the election absentee ballot processing. We'll have the clerk staff working there. A number of our staff are now working remotely and can continue to do so. Many of them have children at home. By the way, nobody in the Public Works Department has children at home except for Sean Stowski. So everybody, there's a good presence in the Public Works Department, and there are a lot of calls that they can field during the course of the day. And our other staff are fielding calls through voicemail or phones being advanced and answering their emails and their phones, but working from home. We getting to one of the future items here on the agenda. When we talk about emergency expenses, one emergency expense that Bill and I have talked about is to buy more laptops so that we can promote remote activity for employees who need it. And that would be one and I don't even know that it's a really significant expense, but one I want to bring to your attention before you grant emergency authority under that.
So then you have a question for this?
Comment on citizens entering or people entering the building. It's now been well documented that the virus can be shed and transferred before someone shows symptoms. So just asking if they're sick not to enter, I think we should make it do not enter.
Well, Mike is just saying that let's close the building, so.
Yes, well, that, he said, ask people that weren't sick.
That's what we're currently doing. What I'm recommending to you, what I would like to do tomorrow is officially close our
Close.
buildings to the public.
Yes.
Yeah, and Dan?
With closing the buildings to the public and the Public Works Department specifically, for people that need building permits, and come in to get building permits, if they couldn't do that online, they would not be able to get a building permit?
I talked with Sean about that today. We probably could make arrangements for that. But we would probably meet them at the front door to do that if they can't pay online, because right now they can pay online. So most of our customers can pay online for building permits.
Some contractor type people don't do that very well. It's the truth. The other question is, coinciding with that, what's Public Works policy then going to be on going out and doing building inspections? So a contractor goes out, he frames something in, he needs it inspected.
We're not anticipating curtailing building inspection services. Those would continue. They can maintain more social distancing, so, and the public is not as much of an issue.
Well, the reason why I ask is Madison is not doing them.
Is not doing it?
They are not doing building inspections in occupied buildings.
I hadn't contemplated that, Dan. Are you advocating we follow their lead on that?
I'm just asking what our
Right.
policy is going to be on
I
that.
mean, we're planning on still having our field services available, Public Works, Public Lands. There's less of a concern there because that we don't have the public interaction with the field service staff usually. And the same is true, for the most part, with building inspections. They can maintain that social distancing more easily.
Dan is saying if the building is occupied, so that is his question, so.
Can you give an example, like?
Sure, you're remodeling your bathroom,
Yeah.
and your contractor's in, and he puts the walls up. But before he can drywall up, his insulation has to be inspected. So in Madison, because you live there and your bathroom is being redone, the inspector from Madison will not come. So in remodeling type projects, now if it's new construction, no.
So that is something which maybe we want to consider?
Yeah, I'll talk with our building inspection staff about that and see if
Okay.
they are comfortable curtailing some activities
Have
for the time being.
gloves that they could wear.
I don't know, but I'll look into that.
And hand sanitizer.
Is this a
with
visual
them.
inspection? It's like, could somebody on the phone show the inspector what they've done? And then they could,
You could take a picture of it and send it in.
or just video, do a
There-
video
there's-
while
I
they're
mean,
there,
yes,
interacting?
there are ways to look at it, but at some point, that's going to come a question, so we need to have some kind of
Thank you
Okay.
for raising that.
Okay, Emily and then, Emily.
I just want to echo what Mike was saying about keep moving operations forward. And the reason I say this is when I was on a town board in Ohio, with the Great Recession, they shut down services. They ran out of money. So they shut services so many days a week. It stopped. So the multiplier effect, we didn't see coming. So they were just trying to save some money, obviously different situation. We care about the public health. But try to keeping operations open is something I really, really learned.
I think most people will agree with Emily, so let's see how we can solve that problem.
Well, and
So,
I'm by no means
Yeah, yeah.
advocating
Yeah,
we
yeah.
stop inspections because of exactly what you say. But we may have to think about graphically or however, but you're right, we don't shut the economy down.
Yeah, no, I think, and Mike, Dan, you're right. Mike will try to work through those solutions to reach some sort of compromise.
And then just one last update. We talked about meetings. Just to clarify, we're talking about electronic technology for certain meetings and other meetings just canceling and not having those meetings. So to the extent that we can schedule meetings with Jeremy's company and videotape them in here or in conference room B, as the case may be, where we have just a picture of the participants on a screen, we will work our level best to do that. It takes time and resources to do that, however, and our staff is not totally adept with the technology at this point, so it could be a little bumpy on the road. But I think particularly with the Council and Plan Commission, it's going to be critical to do that. There are a lot of issues on both agendas that are critical for public access. That's true for all committees, like Larry said, but we don't necessarily have to have all of those meetings.
Any more questions for Mike for item number 3, updates?
Got one.
Yes, Mike.
So part of this is an authorization to release emergency contingency funds if needed. I am not opposed to that in general. I think that given the ease in which we could do a Zoom meeting, that it might be helpful to have specific approval from the Finance Committee, or if that doesn't seem workable, then designate someone, the Finance Committee Chair, to be done in consultation, whether it's me or somebody else, right?
I didn't mean to laugh, but it just.
Well, I understand the cynicism there, giving my curmudgeonness, but I think that we are so tight in terms of emergency contingency funds to start with,
Yes.
right? That I think that it would be better from a governance perspective that, you know, instead of just giving you carte blanche, which I'm not suggesting that you're going to be crazily spending money, but I just think that there should be some type of minimal oversight over that process when you start.
Right, and I would communicate with all the council as well, not that we would have a dialogue online, but I would communicate one way with you, and then you could communicate individually with me if you had any particular concerns. And I would not be opposed to Mark's suggestion that the Finance Committee Chair sign off on significant expenditure if you wanted to outline a particular dollar amount, for example.
You would definitely be sending information out to us, and we could individually respond our opinions back to you.
You could, you just couldn't have that dialogue
Yeah,
through
no, I know.
email,
I
of
said
course.
individually.
Right.
Okay,
And
so
it
are we
might-
on item number 4 that's what
It
we-
might also be useful to give more of a semblance of normal process here, to have an agenda item every council meeting where there have been emergency expenditures, to just list them and ratify them. So there actually has been council approval of them. Could be Finance Committee as well, so that they don't disappear into the Ethernet. I mean, we need to have a process. Yeah, it'll be several weeks after, but again, there's nothing wrong with ratification.
Ratification, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Does
except
that-
just to clarify, I'm talking about pre-authorization from a Finance Committee perspective, and then, yes, have the council ratify. Right, I think there needs to be some very basic oversight function before we authorize the spending. That's all.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yes.
Anyone else? Well, we are on to item number 4 now, Mike, isn't that? You're done with this one?
Yes, we're
so-
done with 3.
Yes, yes.
Moving on to 4.
Yes. So this is authorization, which you are talking about, authorization of emergency executive authority for the city administrator. So some of these items seem okay, but this is the authorization, without any amount and who is going to be oversight.
I do think I should also clarify D and E a little bit for all of you. There is a distinction here, and I want to make sure everybody understands those.
Okay, how about if we go one item at a time?
Okay.
Number A, you seem okay, right? Cancellation of city programs, that's already happening. B, he's asking closure of the city facilities. Are we okay with that? Yeah. Okay, C is the authorization to allow select staff to work from home. It's already happening. Yes. Mark, you seem to be okay? All right, so
D.
Item number D,
Yeah.
continuation of payroll for all regular and full-time and part-time, at least 20 employees.
But I want to make sure you understand that we're not
Yes.
talking about all employees in this case. Employees who work less than 20 hours a week are not on a regular payroll in terms of a certain number of hours. It can vary from time to time. Many of them will not be working at all during this time. Some will, and they will continue to be paid if they're working within their facilities.
Or they're working from home, right? Is that what you're saying?
Those part-time positions would not be working from home.
Okay.
Below 20 hours a week. Those who are 20 and above, 20 to 30, are part-time without benefits. So they don't have any leave benefit, they just get paid on a regular basis. A good example of that are many of the employees at the library who work between 20 to 30 hours a week. They work regular hours, they would continue to be paid on payroll. The library board actually already approved that, or not the library board, but the library director, and has received consent from the library to continue to do that.
But Mike, you're talking about the regular full-time employees working from home, right? Is that what you're asking for here?
Regular full-time employees, whether they're working from home or not,
Oh,
they could still be working here. And then, of course, regular part-time employees. All of which, of the full-time, have leave balances, except for really new employees who may not have leave balances. So item E.
no, Mike, but if they're working from here, why do you need this? I mean, they will be paid nevertheless, right?
I think he's asking for some flexibility to give people the benefit of the doubt if they have to stay home to take care of kids,
Okay.
right? Where you're not necessarily working 8 to 5, but
Okay.
if you can get if it takes 12 hours to get 8 hours of work in, right, that you have that flexibility, or to give the managers the opportunity to say, you know what, I understand that you have kids at home, or you've got other care responsibilities at home. We can be flexible in the amount of hours that you have to work during the day. That what I think he's asking for is to continue to pay people that are full-time wages, that are part-time, that whatever their normal part-time wages, that's what he's asking for. It's not to
Yes.
micromanage them.
Is that what you are asking?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes,
all
it
right,
is.
thank you.
I support that.
Okay, now to item number E.
All right, so E is intended for all of our employees. And that means all of those limited term or seasonal employees that I mentioned. If any of our employees contract the coronavirus, that we would grant up to 2 weeks for those employees who've been exposed to COVID-19, so that they would have, if you worked 5 hours a week, you'd get 10 hours of pay.
I think makes sense.
All right, so that's just a little bit of a buffer for folks. You're supposed to be able to possibly recover within 2 to 3 weeks. So that's to give a buffer to our lowest paid employees.
And newest.
And newest, in many cases, too.
Mhm.
So that, and like you're saying, Emily, it would apply to all full-time employees as well. So that there would be some buffer that we would have for all of those, because we want to encourage them not to come to work. In fact, we would be
Yep.
directing them not to
Yep.
come to work so that they could still have a check.
And would they be using sick time If they had it
If they have a
available.
balance, yes. If they don't, what we would allow them to do, and we've done this administratively in the past, is to earn that back
Okay.
over time. So if you get a negative balance, you get sick leave, you get vacation, and you can earn that back as you continue to work.
Mark,
Just so everyone knows, as long as the employee stays with the city, there is no cash or budget implication to this, except for on the CAFR, right? Because then you have to estimate what the gap balances are, right? So this,
Each year determine the value of the relief balance at the end.
right, so that's the only impact is on the CAFR, where you're making that statutory to gap translation, right? So as long as you have the same number of people on the payroll, it's already budgeted for, whether we advance leave or not, has no cash impact because it's already built in.
okay, so makes sense. So item number F.
Why don't we,
Yes.
why don't we
okay.
do this? Why don't we make a motion to authorize A through E, and then we'll take the other two separately.
You could put F in there. You don't need F.
Yeah, it's just
separately.
the payments.
Really, it's
okay.
just G.
Okay, is that your motion? Need a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to approve the item under number 4 from A to F, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is unanimous. Now move on to item number G. Yes, Mike?
Well, I'm totally supportive of what Mark had suggested. Bill and I would call him and seek his consent for any emergency expense that's not currently within the budget. And the example I used earlier, which I think is the most likely, would be for laptops that employees could take home to work remotely, and the technology that would allow that to happen.
And just, I'm sorry, Emily. go
Okay,
ahead.
Emily first and then Dan.
Are you thinking like 10 laptops or 100 laptops?
I actually don't know that number at this point. We'll have to sit down with Drew, because he's been gathering information from each department on what their needs are for remote work.
The only reason I'm asking is if, sometimes what we say is if it's over $1,000, then refer it for discussion. If it's $20, you don't need to call me.
Right.
So if there's a number that you're thinking, let us know. But otherwise, good luck with your laptops.
Dan?
Just to clarify then, if something like that would come up, you would share it with the rest of the finance committee and.
The whole council,
So
Whole
everybody
council.
would, okay.
right.
Okay. Robert?
As much as I chuckled before, I would actually recommend that Mark be the contact person on the finance committee for our city administrator to interact with somebody.
Everybody knows he's the most curmudgeonly one of you, so it makes total sense.
Are you kidding? I've been vying for that. You won?
We have a
Yes.
club that you can sign up.
You've got a
Need
long way to
second
go.
for that? I'll second that if you need me. Not that you're curmudgeon, that you should be the one that does the review.
Curmudgeon 2. I'm junior. I'll take
It's a
it.
training program.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So, Mike, I expect that you're not talking about like Emily was saying $20 or $30, that you will
No,
have money for
No,
those.
we have a non-departmental fund that we cover a lot of those type of expenses, but this would be a separate allocation for an emergency-related purpose. And Bill and I couldn't think of very many other than this off the top of our heads, but we just don't know the full force and effect of what is ahead of us.
Okay. Any questions for Mike or comments? Does that look okay to you, Mark?
Sure.
Susan? Everyone else? Okay, then need a motion to approve the item number F.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so Robert is second.
I'll motion
Oh.
it as long as it's G.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, any further question or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the item number G under 4, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. All right. We are on to the agreements. Item number 1, collateral assignment of,
Just a point of order, can we take 1 and 2 together, please?
okay, that's fine. Item number 1 and 2, collateral assignment of TIF, Conservancy Bend Residences, and the collateral assignment of TIF regarding Conservancy Townhomes.
I'll move approval as recommended by finance for both.
Second for both.
Okay, any questions or comments? It's just a, okay, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. Under award of bid, court and professional services, item number 1, award of bid to Wolf Paving for mill and overlay for Fox Ridge, John Quayle, and Sunrise.
Move approval as recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is unanimous. Award of bid to Concrete Services Company for concrete repair project.
Move approval as recommended by finance.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is unanimous. Now, Luke, unless you tell me otherwise, I would imagine that you are in favor of these things.
That's exactly right. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, award of bid to Joe Daniels Construction for Stone Horse Green Construction.
I'll move we defer this.
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion to defer, say aye.
Excuse
I
me,
think we have a question.
Oh, sorry, Susan, I apologize, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm glad we're deferring this because I'm concerned of the viewpoint of citizens who are going to be facing a lot of extreme financial difficulty, asking why is the city spending a huge amount of money on a plaza, park, whatever you want to call it. I think it's something we should delay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Robert?
I just, it's not a park. So definitely, the plaza,
The green.
I agree with the statements made by Susan.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, now, everybody who is in favor of this motion to defer, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
Aye, I'm opposed.
Oh, okay, 7-1. Now, Luke, I imagine you're in favor to defer, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. We are on to licenses. This is Dolgen Corp. LLC. Dollar General is requesting a Class A fermented malt beverage and Class A intoxicating liquor. And they are located at 5430 Century Avenue in Middleton, Wisconsin, and Imran Khan, 609 Grandview Drive, is an agent.
I
What-
move approval.
Okay, need a second.
I would appreciate it if the minutes would reflect that the approval by the council is expressly limiting the quote, Class A, close quotes, intoxicating liquor license to wine only, and that the licensee agreed to this. Just
Wine and beer, right?
wine and, well, they've got the beer automatic. It's a Class A beer, and there's a Class A intoxicating, which includes wine.
Oh, okay.
Unlike places that serve by the glass, where there's a separate wine license, there is not for stores. So I think it's appropriate that the minutes reflect this so that it's enforceable if it needs to be.
Approve it
Is
with
that-
beer and liquor with wine only.
Okay. You made the second, who did
I'll
the second?
second it, but that keeps
Okay,
it
okay.
consistent with other establishments like Walgreens and CVS that have similar licenses but cannot serve liquor.
And that's what Eleanor intended.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
That's exactly what we intended.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to miscellaneous authorization to hire independent information technology management services.
Move approval, actually, is that right? I thought we were just, I thought you were just coming back with a contract.
Yes, what we're asking is for your authority for us to
Negotiate a contract.
negotiate a contract with MarcoNet. So we're looking at either a contract of 44 months, which is 3 years plus the 8 months of this year, or 5 years. I think from the Finance Committee discussion, the comfort level is more with the 44-month contract. And embedding into the monthly amount the one-time costs and setup. So it would be spread out and amortized over that period of time through the monthly payment.
So I'll move approval as recommended by Finance with the note that I think we were indifferent to the term as long as it was the most beneficial to the city.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Yeah, this is if the company isn't performing, so we should be able to let them go, so.
I think most of you too were here for that discussion at Finance, if I'm not mistaken. So you did hear the comments about, the overall value that we felt that we would get from this service. It's kind of like hiring a legal firm, a law firm, where you have many different experts that you can work with and help us to meet our growing IT needs all across the board.
Except you want to make sure that like law firm, they perform, so.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is unanimous. Item number 2, community campus plan outline of public process.
Bill, could you put my memo up there? I could not get my tablet. I couldn't remember my password.
Had that today.
Too many darn passwords. And then the last part of the second page of the memo, please. All right, we have within your packet an outline of health and all policies that we got through the Green Tier group and Center on Wisconsin Strategy. In my memo, I reviewed where we have come in the past on the community campus plan. We started about a year ago with council approvals, getting consultants from SEH and EUA, architects and engineers. We established our primary goals and additional goals in the RFP, which were approved by the council and the Plan Commission. And if you could scroll down, Bill. I'm going to do a Melissa McCarthy thing here. If you could scroll to the next page, Bill.
A reader class.
Thanks. That's good. All right, so, and then recapping the committee of the whole meeting and the points that were made in the minutes from that meeting about validating space needs, consideration of outreach, interest in having a focal point such as a town square, concerns about too much density and the cost and feasibility of underground parking, dedicated senior center space with accessibility, and additional consideration of net zero energy efficient building, which is also on the agenda tonight under the community campus plan sustainability goals. So the succinct points that I wish to make in terms of bringing health and equity in all policies to this process, and this is from a meeting of the community campus committee that we had, I want to say it was last week. And one of the proposals is to have a commitment from each of you as elected officials to help lead a public outreach meeting. Let's assume that this is after the COVID-19 crisis has passed. reaching out into each of your districts where we would seek out the residents from your district at a public place, or if you wanted to host at your home. We would have a canned meeting that we would bring, asking of questions. We would bring that back to the council to make sure that you're comfortable with that canned meeting. Take that out to each district. We'd also take it out to other groups in the community, some of the least participative in public processes, to renters, to low-income groups, or to low-income housing areas, to more ethnically diverse groups. The Sikh Temple, for example, would be one. Our own youth center, which has a majority of minority participants, would be another. And there may be others that we would ask for you to help identify. We want to take this out to the entire community to get their ideas and hopefully gain support on a concept that the community feels comfortable with. And this is, again, some aspect of consolidating our meetings and parking in the downtown area to have a more efficient building, and hopefully one that financially does not strap people as well. And that's the next bullet point, to try to use TIF as well as the either sale of development rights or outright sale of property to offset the costs of the public project, utilizing our financing capabilities with TIF, perhaps in the overall phasing of the project, as well as the use of the end of the TIF district for the borrowing, and trying to level that out as much as possible so that we can have a minimal impact on the taxpayers. And particularly the ones I know that you hear from, they're on the edge, afraid of losing their home, afraid of too high of rent, and they can't afford it. This is a big project, and it's good for the long term, but we want to address those financial concerns.
So Larry, I have a question for you. How much of the TIF we could spend on this one? Could you spend, let's say, the approximate cost is $60 to $80 million. Could you spend $30 million from TIF?
Well, it depends what's being built. Public buildings are broadly not authorized things to be built with TIF funds. Now, if you had a mixed-use building, which is not uncommon anymore, it's possible that you could. Similarly, there'd be no reason that TIF couldn't lend money to the general fund, and large amounts if necessary, to make them work, as long as it was making better money than money on deposit in the city banks. But just generally, there's a flat-out prohibition on you can't build a city hall with TIF, to pick an obvious one.
Yeah, the one thing that I brought up with Larry was the public parking options. The general guiding concept there would be that we already have it in our TIF plan for a downtown parking ramp or parking solution. And so that if you build parking, whether it's under public buildings or not, and it's open and accessible for the public, there's an economic development generator that helps to bring. So that's one that Larry did feel comfortable with.
So, but Larry, if you loan, it has to be paid back.
Of course.
Yeah, so.
For the non-TIF portions, yeah. Another is resolving inequities in leisure programming, in project design and programming. Now, what is meant by that is that we have right now recreation programs that have to charge budgetarily. We have library programs that can't charge. We have senior center programs that very few are charged. So the inequity is in having recreation programs that are broadly based that have to charge. And to try to work through that so that our programs aren't competing against each other, but try to find a long-term solution. And it's not going to be easy. Validating space needs and providing accessible and customer-friendly space and delivery of services while respecting seniors' desires for their own program space. And again, that's a fine balance between what is space that can be used by the larger community as well as seniors perhaps during the day. In the evening, it could be recreation space. It could be library programming space because library has longer hours than the others. And seeking parking solutions, this is very hard, that provide equity among user groups. Now, unless we're providing absolute free parking, which is easier to do on a flat lot, if we're building structured parking, which is much more expensive, should there be a charge to that? We're going to have to examine some hard issues over the next few years on how to pay for that in the long term, because structured parking maintenance is very expensive. And that may include also parking on the streets. And then finally, planning for public and private development density that is respectful of nearby commercial and residential property neighbors. Kathy and I have heard quite a few of our fellow neighbors, whether they're commercial or residential, with concerns about that. So it's all of these issues and bringing them out in a constructive way in community meetings and then with eventual public hearings. Now, we thought when we first started this process that we'd be doing this throughout the remainder of this year, but COVID-19, I think, is changing that in front of us. So we may be waiting out till late summer, maybe fall, before we can really have an outreach program. So it's up in the air. But what we'd like is the council's endorsement of this process and the approach of bringing health and equity into the process, public process as well.
Yes, Kathy.
One other thing about the funding was they were talking about a library impact fee also that would help with some of the funding.
Yes.
Impact fee for when new homes are built, that they, just like public safety, that they contribute towards a library.
Any other questions, Katie or Emily? Dan? You got some question, Dan?
Question at this point.
Okay. Okay, well, this is more for information, or you want some approval here?
Asking for the council endorsement of the outline, the plan outline for the public process.
Yes, Katie.
I would like to move that we approve this outline for this process.
I just have I'll second that, but I just want to make a comment. We have no idea how long this COVID-19 is going to, are we willing to put this whole project on hold if this is, like if they're saying they want to, I mean, we don't know if this is going to be like August or September or
Yeah, that's a
later.
good question, Kathy. We have our consultants on hold as we conduct this
Right.
public process. So their charges might be more next year than they are.
We were hoping to have some sort of recommendation by the end of this year.
Right. So that's a good question for all the council. I hope what I'm hearing is your understanding that we would, might have to push this process back depending upon circumstances. But we have probably at least 3 years, maybe 4 years of planning before we'd have a project. But getting to the point where we have a consensus on a concept will be significant. There will be validating of space needs will be important to that in the early concept. And then after that, hiring of an architect to do and engineers to do final concept. And there will be a lot of process in this over the next 2 to 3 years. So we could conceivably push it back, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so there's a motion and second, and Kathy had comments. Anyone else has some comments or questions?
And we're just wondering if these meetings, like we're doing, the public meetings for the city, if these could be done through electronic meetings, remote meetings. I wonder how far out this could keep going, you know? Yeah, exactly. And
Well,
this
we
is-
can always come back here. I mean, if, I guess,
We can do general citizen surveys too, but that doesn't necessarily get to folks who are not really participatory in
We've already
in public
done
processes.
a survey, correct?
We've had some surveys already, yep.
okay, more questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. On to item number 3, community campus plan sustainability goals.
Mayor, I made a mistake earlier. Kelly Hilliard had provided me statements from the Sustainability Committee to read. I think
Okay.
now might be more appropriate than in citizens' comments
Okay,
from citizens present, but both Kelly and Spencer Schumacher, who's the chair of the Sustainability Committee, had some comments. So I want to read Spencer's comments on behalf of the Sustainability Committee. I am speaking on behalf of the committee to recommend that the council adopts the sustainability vision and goals for the proposed community civic campus project. Our community has been a leader in sustainability for over a decade now, and it is important that any new building project embodies the goals of our energy resolutions while adhering to our city's sustainability plan. This proposed new civic campus is an incredible opportunity to model how we achieve sustainability through efficient energy and water use, build with sustainable, ethical, and healthy materials, reduce waste, and create a civic asset that serves all residents of Middleton. Adopting these goals will help to set a baseline of expectation for designers, engineers, and consultants bidding and working on this project, deliver on our promise to residents that the city will adopt policies that combat climate change, in other words, walk the walk, model cost-effective sustainable design, and provide a very public model for how to do it, safeguard health for city staff and user groups, accessibility and universal design for differently abled mobility, safe indoor air quality, productive and safe work environments for mental health, etc., enhance livability and walkability downtown, provide support for habitat and pollinators, increase resiliency for the community, and create a dynamic space where everyone feels welcome, a physical representation of our good neighbor city. And then on behalf of Kelly Hilliard, our sustainability coordinator, I would like to be at the council meeting tonight to answer questions, but the COVID-19 restrictions prevent me from responsibly doing so. Therefore, I am passing along this statement to Mike to read to council. Please do reach out to me with any questions about my memo, and I will do my best to address them via email, phone, or video conference. It is important for me to convey how important it is to prepare sustainability goals upfront, early in the planning process for a potential community civic campus. We must be clear about our goals and our design brief before conceptual design begins. This will help us achieve a comfortable, efficient, equitable, and perhaps net positive energy building project. I've outlined many reasons within my memo in your packet why it is important to take these steps, and I've highlighted community support present behind these goals. These goals are presented to council for approval from both the Sustainability Committee and the Plan Commission. These outlined goals provide a high-level vision. They are prudent, cost-effective, and necessary to meet our current climate crises. They also are achievable and within reason. Our energy consultants, Slipstream, recently completed our energy plan deliverable for the 7-City Office of Energy Innovation $200,000 grant we received in late 2018. Our energy plan recommends that communities in Dane County develop net zero carbon new construction resolutions and guidelines for all new buildings. Research suggests that these technologies add low or no costs above conventional design, especially when considering the energy cost savings. The plan also recommends using distributed energy resources, solar, and backup battery storage for lower costs and resiliency efforts. We have tools available to us to start looking at systems and costs. Focus on Energy offers free design assistance, and I advise we have conversations now about potential microgrid and distributed energy resources with our partners, MG&E. Utilities know that this technology will be implemented in cities everywhere and that the technology is developing rapidly. We have been at the forefront in this state prototyping new energy models with MG&E for years now. We are poised to lead on this in Wisconsin, and we already have that momentum. As for existing examples, we have one such example in Middleton already. Standard Imaging on Deming Way has never directly burned fossil fuels in their building since they built it in 2006. Their solar panels provide enough energy to power their HVAC system, which runs via geothermal technology. Lastly, I believe the Health in All Policies framework will help us build trust and increase civic engagement in Middleton with residents whom we serve but rarely hear from in council chambers. This is sustainability too, co-creating and expanding our city's identity to include everyone. Thank you for taking the time to consider this vision. That's from Kelly Hilliard, our sustainability coordinator.
Okay. So the motion was made or not yet? Did anyone wants to, Katie?
I will move that we approve the sustainability goals in the community campus plan.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments now? Any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to item number 4. This is the material release in favor of the City of Middleton Police Department from Blackfin Discovery Communications.
This document relates to a project where a company wants to work with our police department to do various filmings. Because we do have a registered trademark for the symbol that's above the mayor's left shoulder, if I'm doing it backwards, they were concerned that they have the right to use it. Matt has negotiated these terms, and accordingly, we recommend that the release be approved.
Okay, any questions for Larry or somebody's ready to make a motion? Robert?
So, yeah, so this is just
And then
for
Emily.
the trademark use of our logo. It has nothing to do with any other rights to the media being created or the content being created by, it sounds like they're making, I didn't know what this was. I mean, I was thinking we were going to be in an episode of Cops or something.
It does include interrogation room footage, surveillance footage, but our stamp with the logo is right on much of what we do. But so it's basically to make sure that they have our permission to do that.
Emily?
Are they making?
Oh, Katie, sorry.
I don't know.
I'd go one step further. What are they doing and why do we want to even be involved in this?
Well, if the chief were here, he could explain better than I can, because the police department has been working with this firm, and I don't know the details of that relationship.
So the Murder Tapes is a TV show on investigation discovery.
I see.
Is this somehow related with the paradigm?
No, this is, there was a murder on University Avenue 2 years ago.
Oh, that one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Katie?
Could I move to defer this till the Tuesday?
I'd second that.
Okay, Mike?
Just wanted to let you know, I think this program is set to air tomorrow night. I'm sorry, with the COVID-19, I am really not up to speed with this. Mayor, did you talk to Troy Helen?
I talked to Troy, and he was quite happy with it, and we had good discussion, and he didn't really see any problem. He thought that it will present the city in a good light. That's what he said. Yes, and now Emily, so.
So I'm assuming he saw the final footage that
Yes,
will premiere.
yes, yes. That's what he told me.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sure it's
commission
just a
sign off on
snippet.
this?
You guys
I don't know.
Did the police commission sign off on this?
Mike?
Emily's on the police commi, or public
Public
safety.
safety did not hear about it,
Oh,
but we haven't met because of the transition. So there has been a bridge of time that we have not met.
Yeah, so this has not gone through any committee. I think it came from the police department middle of last week, maybe?
Yeah.
And it is a program that is scheduled to air tomorrow night, and that's why I believe Matt Fleming thought we should have council approval rather than an administrative approval before it airs.
So this has been in the works for some time, correct?
Yeah. So if we don't, well, my question and then Emily, so if we don't approve, what happens? Can they show it? Emily, go ahead. And then Bill.
I would like to make a motion to approve it because of the short notice, in good faith, and in support of the new police chief. And the reason is that if it's going to air, there's so many things going on. And I know that he's been dealing with a lot with the transition. And I would suspect that in the future, that if there was any other opportunity like this, he would notify us much sooner? Yes? Okay, great. That would be my assumption.
Could,
I will second Emily's motion.
Okay, so, okay, now Larry, let's sort it out, then Bill. First, Katie had made the motion, and Robert had seconded it, and then she wanted to defer it. So, and there was no second to that deferring.
I
There
did.
was.
I
Oh, there,
seconded it.
you did
Yeah,
second it?
I did.
Okay.
Well, the motion to defer could be withdrawn, otherwise it should be voted on.
Okay, so,
Withdraw my motion.
okay, all right, so now then we are back to the motion to approve, which was by Emily and Robert. And,
If
well,
I could just add, I don't know much
Yes,
about this
yes,
topic,
go
but
ahead,
I believe I saw in an email with Matt Fleming that it's not a question of whether or not it's going to air, but if it airs without this approval, they're going to have to blur out the logo. So I think that's
Okay.
what we're talking about.
okay, so that's,
so it's free publicity on one side, and it's the other host of issues on the other. But I'd like to make a friendly amendment to your motion in that we restrict any future endeavors subject to council approval prior to things happening.
Thank you. That.
okay, yeah,
I don't think
that's
the
good.
police station needs publicity. You know.
So, any further questions or comments on this one now? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve with added, yes, Robert, go ahead, sorry.
The friendly amendment was taken by the first mover.
Okay,
I think, am I the second mover?
yeah, I guess you were, so are
I
you,
remember seconding it, but
I'm sure you
I
did,
second
my
Emily's.
friend.
Seconded it.
yeah, you
I
did.
got it. Are you okay with what he said?
sure, I'll be
Okay.
I guess I will be the second. And
I need a
to-
loud voice.
Louder voice. Kind of from the.
You were saying?
No,
can
yeah,
only
I
do
didn't remember being the
cats.
second, but I am now, so.
Thank you.
Okay, Kathy,
Does this give them rights going forward too? I thought I just was glancing over here and I thought it said that it gave them ongoing.
so,
I think it would have to for
Anytime
the
that they show.
content.
But is this, the murder tapes, is that the show? Like if they, like when you mentioned Paragon, if they decided to do a show, would this already give them the?
No, that was
No.
the second part, my friendly amendment was that any.
No, but does this
Well-
give the murder tapes
Only if they're using the original footage from this one show. That's all they have the rights to.
this one show?
Yeah.
Larry, is that true? Okay.
Got it.
Is that, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion now with all various stipulations, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion passes? Oh, well, okay, 7-1. I apologize. Okay. We are under the ordinances. This is the first reading. Final action may be taken upon approval of the motion to suspend rules under section 1.07 Middleton General Ordinances. Ordinance to use yield controls to stop controls on Mount Drive and Sharing Cross Lane.
I move to suspend the rules and approve.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The motion passes. And Luke, you are for it. Okay.
You fell asleep.
Correct.
Okay, item number 2. Ordinance to amend parking restrictions on Lee Street, North Avenue, and Middleton Street. It's the part of the high school reconstruction, so.
Move to suspend the rules and approve.
Second.
Okay, any further questions or comments? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item number 3, an ordinance to provide citation writing authority to park rangers.
The rules and approve.
So now, yes, Robert.
Just, can anybody, I didn't, it says to issue citations for violations of chapter 21 of this code. Can anyone quickly summarize what types of violations are under chapter 21 of the code?
Larry.
I believe these are the park use ordinances.
Thank you.
So just the park use. So that makes sense. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 4, an ordinance to restrict possession of firearms in school zones.
Move approval. With waiving whatever it is,
Suspending the rules.
suspending the rules.
Okay, Robert?
We had a conversation a few meetings back now about what happens when something is in a public park.
Mhm.
And what I believe the answer was, much to my chagrin, the answer was, if it's in a public park, that takes precedence over this ordinance, but I guess I would like confirmation of whether somebody has a firearm and they have it in a public park, which we're not allowed to restrict that according to, I believe, state law. How does this work with a 1,000-foot possession of a firearm within 1,000 feet of a school when the school is right next door to a public park, for instance?
Well, it's a fairly common situation that statutes conflict. And there's a general rule of statutory construction, which is when you have two statutes and one of them is general and one of them is specific, the specific one takes precedence. So here, this would be the specific one, since it's not all parks, but rather it's parks that happen to be within 1,000 feet of schools. So I think it's an enforceable provision for the council to adopt.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Larry.
All right, anyone else? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes unanimously, I'm assuming, so. Resolution, item number 1, resolution 2020-16, final assessments of mill and overlay, Fox Ridge, Jonquil, Sunrise.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 2, Resolution 2020-17 authorizing the use of personal contingency funds for the Finance Department restructuring.
Move approval is recommended by finance.
Second.
Any questions? Yes, Robert.
I believe, at least in the copy that I have, I think there might need to be a change of date. The very last line, certifying that this is approved based, or adopted based on a common council meeting of August 7th, 2018. I would recommend that we change that to March 17th, 2020.
Thank you, Robert. That is pretty important, so. Any other changes? Okay, all those in favor of the motion with that date change, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, Resolution 2020-18, vacating a portion of Tribeca Drive. Vacating about 11 feet.
This is the first council meeting on this, so that the only action you need to do tonight, and here's a problem we're going to be having, is we're going to need to schedule a public hearing. And the public hearing will need to be at least 45 days out from now. So I think that's three council meetings in the future. So all we need tonight would be for the council to specify the date of the public hearing. That will then trigger all these other things that we need to do. You're not taking action on the resolution.
Okay, so somebody want to set the date of the public hearing?
Calendars are behind Mark and Susan.
I'm working on it. So we have 14 days yet this month, we have 30 days next month, but we're gonna have to get this published.
Add another.
Earliest you can do would be May 1st, right? So probably May 5th.
I think we'd have to get it to the newspaper yet this week. Do we have a notice ready to go?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's not urgent. You could make a second meeting in May too, so.
We'll get it over
I want to do the second meeting in May, just.
Yeah, let's just, yeah, I think that should be okay, so.
So that date.
19th?
Okay, May 19th. Is that your
I
motion?
move we set a public hearing for May 19th.
Need a second? Mark?
Second.
Okay, Robert? Okay, any questions or comments on this one? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Now, these are the committee appointments, and this is a temporary appointment of Caroline Berger to the Water Sources Management Committee. So Eric Booth has taken some leave of absence, and he can't attend the meetings until about September, and Caroline has agreed, and she's a great candidate here, and and I talked to the Larry, and he said yes. Oh, well, talk to Mike. I think didn't talk to Larry, so. And he says I can do it.
Okay, if you confuse me with Larry.
Oh, okay. So need a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Okay, need a second? Okay, yeah, she's actually also working for the city of Madison now on the kind of projects which we are working here. She will be absolutely tremendous. So,
When does his term expire?
oh,
It's coming back.
Definitely coming back.
well, don't know. I tried to call him.
Term is not expiring.
No, his term isn't expiring for 2 more years, so. Yes, Mike?
Mayor, I meant to say this earlier, but, you know, the real elephant in the room on COVID-19 is we're supposed to be holding a primary on April 7th.
Yes.
Yeah.
And while we've suspended the rights of constitutional assembly, First Amendment of the Constitution to assemble peaceably, we can't somehow move the primary date, and it's affecting people. We may not have enough volunteers to staff, not volunteers, but election workers, to staff our 4 polling places. They're talking already about possibly combining the 4 into 2. So there's going to be at least an inconvenience to voters that we can foresee, not to mention the public health threat. So if you could, please call the governor's office, call the governor, and make your voice known on this. I know from what Bill told me earlier, a number of mayors on a conference call, was that early today? We're talking about making that voice known to the governor as well. There may be Wisconsin constitutional issues, but, you know, like I said, we've already curtailed the First Amendment right to peaceably assemble to 10 people at this point. So it would seem to me that, and it's quite ironic, that we can't move an election back. Ohio did, and other states have done so.
Has the League of Municipalities taken a stance on this? And
I think they're going
lobbied
to
them?
after the feedback that they got today. Did they say specifically, Bill? Or was it more of a mixed?
They're, I think, trying to get I think the league is trying to put together a consensus of their membership, and there were probably 70 people on the call, and there were some speaking very loudly in favor of what Mike is saying, that we need to postpone it. There were others saying that, no, we need to go forward, and that's the election, and we shouldn't be extending terms for people in office without having an election. However, from what I heard, several mayors of the larger cities in Wisconsin that are probably going to have the larger logistic challenges with being able to staff and operate polling places, that a lot of those mayors are trying to come together and speak in a common voice, and I think the league's helping to facilitate that. They said that there is another conference tomorrow morning with county executives, and then they're trying to do a joint meeting with county executives and mayors of larger cities and try to put something together to take to the governor. I know, talking with Lori and Michelle, we are struggling with the logistics of how we are going to operate an election. Lori's had several election officials that have said they're not coming. She has a chief inspector that may not come there. Like Mike said, we're talking about having to potentially combine polling places, but it's too late in the process to reprogram our tabulators. It's just going to be a logistical nightmare, and I can't imagine in larger cities like Madison or Milwaukee how you do that and have a fair, effective election. So I feel very strongly that it needs to be postponed.
And I think you told me that we've already processed 2,600 absentee ballots, right?
Yeah.
So it's ironic at best to me
What's normal?
in a presidential.
I don't know what number for mail-in at this point is normal, but I don't know what would be normal at this point, but I know this is way above normal. Lori told me that 4 years ago in April, there were 8,000 total votes cast. We're already at 2,600 that we've processed and entered. We have another 125 that came in this afternoon. She said that they were coming in at 2 to 3 per minute. We expect to be out of envelopes tomorrow, and everyone in the county and probably the entire state is scrambling to find printers that can get envelopes put together. We're going to keep processing them as quickly as we can. The direction from the governor currently is the election is going to go on, so we're doing our best to accommodate that, but it's a challenge.
Yes, Emily.
I believe people can still ask for their absentee ballots till tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes. March 18th.
I saw it today.
There is a deadline of tomorrow for online registration.
Okay.
People can continue, if they're registered, can continue to request a mailed absentee ballot. I don't remember the exact date, but it's within a few days of the election.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did mine today, so I'm going to be mailing it in. And I ask that everybody in my district think about it, and I hopefully will get envelopes.
Yep.
Might be one of your purchases to mark.
Right.
So, you know, when you think about primary exposure to the virus, lining people up in public places
Yeah.
where we're already banning 10 people from gathering is just somewhat ridiculous.
Susan?
Yeah, I just looked at a scientific article on COVID-19 saying that it survives on surfaces such as stainless steel
Yep.
for a couple of days.
Yep.
So that they are suspecting is the major way of infecting you. So we would have to be washing down every little thing there with every person.
Yep.
There's not enough hand sanitizer to do it.
So Susan, I looked
I
at
will
this.
be writing the governor.
No, I didn't. I read the same article. They did not show yet that whether it will transmit. So there were two parts of it. One was the aerosol in the air, and other it's staying on the surface.
It's surviving on the surface. You touch your hands, it's staying viable on the surface. If you put your hands on it and then touch your face, you're probably infected.
Katie?
Susan, do you know if Lysol kills it?
Oh, yeah, of course it does, yeah.
I think Lysol, it depends on, I sent out to Mike a long list of things.
Yeah.
The three things I know for sure, ethanol, 70% ethanol, that is what is used in the research labs here at the university working on it. Isopropanol,
Bleach kills everything, yeah.
hydrogen peroxide. Mike has a list from the EPA of all that. I don't know if he sent it to council or not.
No, I sent it to staff.
You might want to send it to council, but it's listing by brand, acceptable disinfectants.
Yes, Katie?
You can get spray bottles of alcohol that could be super quick.
Yes.
The point is, I think we need to make it clear to the governor, all of us, is that if you're going to ban more than 10 people in a spot at one time, how in the world can you expect an election to go on?
That's
I mean,
true.
let's call a spade, that's asinine.
That's right.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if he says, no, it's happening, what can we do to help?
Yeah, that's right, so.
What can we do to help?
Okay, so could we make a vote on that motion, then we can keep talking about this?
I
So,
think if you're not actually in an election, you can volunteer or be employed. If you are on the ballot, you can't for obviously reasons.
Actually, Mike, I was told a long time ago, and Larry said this, that I could not work as a poll worker because I was a council member and I technically supervised Lori, who would have to then supervise me as a poll worker.
Is that true, Larry?
I recall that.
And I liked working on the
Yeah.
elections. but-
yes, Katie?
If the election was to happen, can I convince the governor? Can I donate? Do something to help you out?
Can you actually,
Ask your friends,
Yeah, just,
or neighbors,
Sure.
or ask them to do absentee ballots, so that we're not showing up.
Every day.
Good job.
But will that, I mean, is that gonna be enough to keep the crowds light? Early voting, mail-in voting?
Personally, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think the election needs to be postponed. If
Yeah.
the direction is that it needs to be held, I would contact Lori directly, but I'm sure she could use people to help with processing, stuffing envelopes. You know, if there are certain things that you can't do, there are probably other jobs that we could find that she could help. And reminder that these are extraordinary times. If we're directed that we have to have an election, we may need to get very creative on how we hold the election.
Larry, if our elected officials can't help at the polls, could they help stuff envelopes?
I think that's a closer question because if there's a room of 10 people stuffing envelopes and one of them's an elected official, I think the risk of pressure is far less than when it's actually in the small group setting of an election. You know, just so people understand, if they're volunteering to be election workers, you don't just walk in and become an election worker. There is significant training that Lori has gone through and our chief election inspector has gone through, and it's not anywhere near as easy as you might think to do it. So if someone really wants to volunteer and help, they better do it right tomorrow, first thing, so that they can learn all the things that are involved in the work.
Well, the crew was doing a great deal of envelope stuffing today. I don't know if you got through all of them or not, Bill, but
I think they're caught up other than those 125 for what we entered, but Lori has a stack about this thick of mailing labels that are ready to go on envelopes tomorrow. The challenge is going to be we're probably going to run out of envelopes after tomorrow, but she's working and hopefully we can get more in the next couple days. I think the other thing when you're making, if anyone chooses to contact the governor's office to think about, is I think we have something like 1,800 municipalities in this state. A lot of those probably have one or maybe at most two clerks. If this spreads far enough that we have large numbers of municipal clerks that need to quarantine themselves or isolate, I don't know how practically you can do an election. I'm concerned about that here. Lori and Michelle are working so closely together. If one of them happens to get it and both of them need to be quarantined, I don't know what we do. Lots of logistical things to think about.
Okay. So, well, let's vote on the motion for the Caroline Burger. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Sorry, I
opposed?
didn't know you didn't do
So
that.
the motion passes. Okay, we can keep the discussion before we adjourn. So do you have more to talk now, or is that it? So, okay, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor say aye, so we are adjourned. Thank you.